Vivek Ramaswamy tears into cult of racial wokeism. Let's get to it.
It's good to be back. Appreciate the warm welcome. So listen, we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight. We're not going to get angry about this, but I'm going to take us through a little bit of an inquiry to figure out what's going on in our country right now.
An inquiry?
Right, on one hand, we see the rise of these different secular religions. We're here to talk about true faith, but I'm going to go somewhere else first. We see the rise of these secular religions, what I'll call cults in the United States. The first of them is a cult of racial wokeism. I wrote a book about this a few years ago. A new cult that says your identity is based on your skin color. That if you're black, you're inherently disadvantaged. That if you're white, you're inherently privileged. No matter your economic background or your upbringing, your race determines who you are and what you can achieve in life. Now, this is a little bit odd because that runs counter to what Martin Luther King told us in the Civil Rights Movement. That we wanted to be judged not on the color of our skin, but on the content of our character. You can't believe both of those two things at once, and so that's a little bit of a contradiction, but you can believe them if you're subscribing to a religious cult. So right around the same time we see the rise of this cult of racial wokeism, we see the rise of a different belief system. This one's the cult of gender ideology in the United States. This one has so many letters, LGBTQIA, they just put a little plus at the end just to include the rest of the alphabet. This one has some interesting, and we're not going to be angry about it, because sometimes our anger clouds our judgment. If we want to get to the bottom of what's going on, we have to see it with clarity. This one says the sex of the person you're attracted to is hardwired on the day you're born because it had to be in order for gay rights to be civil rights. But now also says that your own biological sex is totally fluid over the course of your life. Again, you can't believe these two things at once, and then you go even one step further. There is no gay gene, but there are two sex chromosomes. 2X, you're a woman, X and a Y, you're a man, right? So you can't believe these two things at the same time if you're applying principles of reason or logic. But you can if you're subscribing to a secular cult. So you got racial wokeism, you've got gender ideology, then at the same time you see now the rise of this third cult in the United States, the cult of the climate, that says we have to abandon carbon emissions at all cost in the United States, even as we're perfectly fine shifting those same carbon emissions to places like China when they tell us it was supposedly about global warming. And then you see the same people who are opposed to carbon emissions in the United States are also the ones who are most opposed to nuclear energy, the greatest form of carbon-free energy production known to mankind. These are contradictions. So I could go on all night. We could go one secular cult after another, but that's not my point. My point...
And the climate change one might seem like a real cult. I mean, just off the context of his statement, I'm not saying it is because I don't know for a fact. But the things they've been doing and the way they protest sometimes is very concerning and very questionable. The other time we saw a video where they had to cement their hands on a plane track. And speculatively, they said they had to amputate some of them. So why would anybody want to do that? What is making people think like that? They would go block roads. The other time, a lady was going to the hospital, I think with a small daughter, and they blocked her from going to the hospital, even when she was yelling about it. You know, like, what would make people think like that? Leave your jobs, leave everything you have to do, leave the structure in your life just to go block the roads in form of a protest. It feels like a cult, even though I'm not saying it is for a fact, but I'm just saying that doing that does, it gives some symptoms.
In raising this is to ask a deeper question. What the heck is going on in our country that we see the rise of these very different secular cults at the same time? Here's the answer. We're in the middle of a national identity crisis right now. faith, patriotism, hard work, family. These things have disappeared, and that leaves a moral vacuum in its wake. And when you have a black hole that runs that deep, that is when the poison fills the void. I say this to you as a relatively young person doing what I'm doing now. I'm 38 years old. I'm a millennial. I was born in 1985. I'll tell you, speaking as a member of my generation, what's going on. We are hungry for a cause. We are starved for purpose and meaning and identity at a point in our national history when the things that used to fill that void, belief in God, belief in country, belief in self, these things have disappeared. And when you have a black hole in your heart, that is when the poison fills the void. Here's the actual secret. It almost doesn't matter what the poison is, actually. I've made this mistake over the last several years. I wrote my first book, Woke Inc., wrote a second book about victimhood culture. It's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. You get the wokeism down here, you got some transgenderism over there, got that down, COVIDism over here, got that down, climatism's up again, globalism. It's an endless cycle. But do you think it's a coincidence? Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism, globalism, depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide. These are symptoms of a deeper void. As the old saying goes, if you have a hole the size of God in your heart and God does not fill it, something else will instead. The same can be said of pledging allegiance to the flag of this nation. Don't pledge allegiance to the American flag. You're going to pledge allegiance to a different flag instead.
That's true. I think the summary basically is an idle man is a devil's workshop. If there's space, something has to fill it up. Like some people try to be lukewarm, say, I don't want to be this, I don't want to be that. Well, it doesn't work that way. You cannot be one leg in, one leg out. Something is going to occupy your mind. You're either for or against it. Well, that was a very interesting speech, very interesting one. And I do agree with what he said as a matter of fact. I mean, as far as calling those things a cult, I don't particularly understand the concept of a cult for real. I'm just being factual with you. I don't understand the concept of a cult. So with those terms, I don't know about that. But with the points he raised about if you're empty and if there's a vacuum in you, something has to fill it up. I do 100% agree with that. And if you've read a little bit about depression and anxiety, it's usually like things like that is what causes depression and anxiety. Lack of involvement or engagement, or lack of things that make you feel fulfilled, and that gives you an emptiness where it's like you start wondering what is wrong with me and start going down that rabbit hole. So a lot of the things he stated are actually like real things people have written about, like real facts, real points, information you can readily go look up for yourself. I'm not saying believe what he said. I'm just saying you can go, check it out and read for yourself, and you understand that he does make sense. Well, I know a lot of you do not agree with Vivek Ramaswamy, which is fine. You don't have to. He's just another man sharing his thoughts. You can also share your opposing thoughts. That is also okay. That being said, is the end of this video. Smash the like button, subscribe, add, critique, correct anything you might have seen in the video, and have a wonderful day. Peace.